oldie. Okay, well, good morning.
Good morning.
It's a joy to be with y'all today, okay? I'm Joachim, Lally. I'll be your waiter today. So we begin, as we begin all important things in our lives, connected, united, one. So we pray together. In the name
Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Loving God within us, around us, we pray that we may be open to the truth that sets us free. Open to your spirit of love that conquers all our fears and anxieties that we're not worthy of it. Conquer all of our illusions that we're separate from you. And conquer all of our anxieties about passing into your arms. Be with us so that we may be with ourselves and with each other. And we pray this as always in the name and in the power of Jesus, your Son and our brother forever and ever.
Amen.
Okay, so I'll make a little announcement that I'm just getting ready to give you all general absolution because I don't believe all of you are 55. Including myself. So, anyway, the topic that we're dealing with is all about life, okay? And it's this idea that we can still have life and joy in the second half of life. Well, if any of you believe you're in the first half of life, that's down the hall, okay? No, we're in the second half of life, and that's where we want to be, because, you know, you don't need to be living an illusion that we've got just as many years ahead of us as we have behind us, okay? That's not quite dealing with reality. So, we're going to be looking at various authors that have proven themselves worthy of attention. Mainly going to be using Sister Joan Chittister, a Benedictine, one of my favorite authors. I've met her before and did a retreat with her one time in New York. And I was a Benedictine myself for 14 years, okay, in Arkansas. And in fact, this past Friday was my 60th anniversary of entering religious life, okay? So I don't hold a candle to someone else here who has got me, and that's Sister Rosie. I think she has a few more than 60, right? But a few. But who's counting, all right? Very good. Sister Rosie is so kind to be the secretary for our Adelante board, which is the 501c3 we use to sponsor our work in the Dominican Republic for missions. I just got back in March after over 40 missions. We built 23 homes for the people living in destitution, and saw 1,000 people in medical clinics, and taught teacher development in 5 public schools, and gave out water filters and solar lanterns. And besides that, we were bored to death in 2 weeks. All right. So it's Joan Chittister, Father Thomas Keating, a Trappist who I've met a number of times. And by the way, keep him in prayer. He is in hospice now, and he's in his 90s, and I think he's going homeward bound. They like that beautiful song. And then Father Thomas Clark, a Jesuit, and my mentor, Father Richard Rohr. Okay, which I've taught a lot of classes on. So I'm going to go through some of these slides I have. I'm not going to be using all the material, but I've highlighted some that I really want to stress, okay? So I had some magic markers that may not be enough for all of you. Maybe you could share them or mark with your, these are your copies. So also, I asked Karen to make out some copies of just 3 books that I want to recommend you. Okay, you got them? Okay, would you kind of just put them out there where people can get them on the way out, okay? Yeah, the books are this book by Sister Joan Chittister. Can't even think of the name of it now. And I have a good memory, but it's short, you know. Let's see, what is that? Anyway, it's in there somewhere. Okay, and then the other 2 books are the Book of Joy, which I gave a class on some time ago. It's the result of the week-long meeting between the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Tutu, and that was the Book of Joy. Powerful. I've got that on the video on demand of the Catholic Information Center also, and that was powerful. And then another one is one of my favorite books is called Who Told You That You Were Naked? All right, and it's all about judgment and how to avoid it and how to not believe it is in the eyes of God. Okay, so those are 3 books I recommend. So let's see if we can. I'm not sure how we do this. It's not working. How do we make this work? No. Always glad it doesn't work when she does it. Have mercy on me, God, you know. Is it working now? All right. I can always turn this, right? Okay, that's good. That won't work either.
Yay!
Wait, you have to do that every time, right? Oh, okay. Okay, rescue work coming up. Okay, so what I took from this one, and just don't have to read everything. You've got you can read it at home or write your homework. Okay, I like this quote from Father Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, Jesuit priest, who wrote about the passivities of diminishment. Anybody feel that you might just be diminishing just a little bit? Yeah. You don't have to hold on me. I can say something, but I won't. Okay. Could it mean when we are less in charge of our lives, more dependent on the support of others, and the prospect of death and dying lurks in the shadows? Could it be when people begin to treat us differently? Is there a distinctive spirituality that may be fashioned from these ingredients? Okay, we're talking about this spirituality in a sense of diminishment. Okay? There we go. All right, so, oh, by the way, I remember what Thomas Merton, the great Trappist writer, spiritual writer of the 20th century, he said that life is like a rowboat setting out into the depths of the ocean, and it's got a serious leak in it. So if you can just imagine that. We're all setting out. We're all in the same boat, okay? All right. So, do we get it working now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right, well, this is... I I'm going to go down to this part about living fully. We're just getting over. I don't know where that is. Did I miss something? I'm supposed to be still on part. Well, it's in my book. Okay. Living fully in the present itself becomes more difficult when we do not also live from the past toward the future. Pastoral and spiritual ministers to the elderly do well when they incorporate the healing of memories and joyful anticipation of the future into their offerings. Okay, this mainly means that we're called to be all mystics. Mystics are the ones who hold it all together. It's both and spirituality, not either or. You know, it's not just, well, you ask people, where do you live, in the past or you live in the future? Or do you live in the present? Well, the answer is all of those. We're all called to do all at the same time. And we can't do it on our own. We do it, as we say in the Mass, through, with, and in Him, right? So it's all called to the depth of mystical prayer. At times one can almost feel the atmosphere of despair in many homes for the elderly. It's really, really depressing a lot of times to go into assisted living places and see people who have kind of given up on life. You know, they're angry, they're sad, they're depressed, and it's so sad because this is the time we're called to be fully alive as we get older. You know, like I like to raise roses, okay? And I just love to see them go from the tiny little bud until they open up, and then they finally, after blooming and giving everything they have, they just let go and the petals fall and become nourishment for the rest of the plant, okay? So it's just this process of looking at our lives differently. Okay. I think I'm not going to use this. It's too much to read. And people back there, you may have the same problem I do with distances, you know. Okay. Death is a transformation process that begins in earnest once the acceptance of the inevitable and the diminutions of the self takes place. Do we accept ourselves getting older? Or do we fight it? You know, that's the basic question. And I think the more basic question is, do we judge it? I teach a lot of classes on judging. It's one of my favorite themes. Because I think the original sin that we have in the book of Genesis is the story of the tree of life, okay? And God says, do not eat of that tree of life. I think that is the ultimate symbol of not judging. Do not eat of that fruit. Do not judge. Judging means to separate, to divide. When you judge someone, you separate themselves from you. You build a wall instead of a bridge. And judging, we can judge God, we can judge ourselves, we can judge others, and we build all these of the walls, okay? And I'm not a wall builder, okay? I'm sorry if this isn't politically correct, but I'm not a wall builder. All right. Okay, all right. All right. There's a work going on that is relentless and very challenging, but its purpose is to heal all the wounds of the soul so that it can open itself completely to God and begin to feel the regenerating or the powerful forces that it may have been separated from all of its life. Experiencing inner resurrection of the ground of being, which is the Trinity within. One of my favorite authors is the mystic Meister Eckhart, who frequently writes of ground, Grund, in High German. What is the ground of our being? Tillich speaks of the St. Paul Tillich. The ground of our being. Who are we? This is the ultimate question. Who are we? If you don't have your identity right, you've missed the boat. Okay? There's a kind of integral freedom that characterizes the final stage of transformation in Christ. Another I heard last night, I was looking for something internet, and this thing came up, and it was that song, I think it's by Simon and Garfunkel. Homeward bound, I thought, wow, that's beautiful. That's where we all are. We're all homeward bound, okay? And I'm convinced that one of the reasons for our sadness and depression and feelings of emptiness and something is missing is that we haven't come to grips with the fact that we're all basically homesick. Now going back to Meister Eckhart, he taught that there are two selves. One is the self that was born at a certain minute of time, certain year, some before others, some after others, and we have a certain span of life. It's all about this dash, in the gravestone, from the birth, It's how do you live your dash? Okay. So that's the temporal self. But Eckhart says there is an eternal self which has never been born and will never die. We were always in God. And I'm convinced that that's the reason nothing on this earth can ever satisfy us, no matter what it is. No matter the most perfect friendship, the most perfect spouse, the most perfect health, nothing satisfies us. Well, because we have been in total love. And we're going to be, like St. Augustine says, our hearts were made for God and they will be restless until they what? They rest in God. Okay? So it's like this feeling that we have that nothing satisfies us, that is our homing instinct. Like the homing pigeons that always come back. That's our homing instinct. We're all homeward bound. And it's a matter of recognizing that and not expecting more than we have in our lives, okay? I like what Father Jim Finley said about reading John of the Cross. He said he used to read John of the Cross as saying, okay, whatever you do, don't go to that banquet and have that wonderful steak and lobster dinner and all the rest. You have to deny yourself of that. That's what he thought John of the Cross really meant. But he said now, after reading more of John of the Cross, he says what he thinks John of the Cross is saying is, go ahead, go to the banquet. Have your lobster and your wine and champagne, all of that. Just don't think that it will satisfy you.
Yep.
Don't think it will satisfy you. It won't. We have all the expectations that this winning the megabucks or whatever it is just we're going to be so happy we can't stand it. We all know that's not true. So I think one of the essences here, I'm really getting off any kind of established routine I was going to have, but that's me, I think our primary goal in life is to identify the illusions that we're living under. Illusions. Jesus said, I am the way, the what? Truth and the life. The truth will set you free. Illusions is also connected with this idea of the tree of life in the Genesis. The illusion that fruit is going to make you like God. That's what Adam and Eve were told. It's living under illusion. What are our illusions? And that's what we're called to recognize as we grow older. We're hopefully going to grow wiser so that we can see what is real and what is not real. What's fake news and what's not. All right? We're called to see that and not fall into the illusions that are all around us trying to suck us in. And once we get in touch with what is illusion and what is not, then we're on the track to recognize that these years of getting older are years of blessings. Real blessings. But it's not easy to get there. It's calling us to be very astute and very awake and very aware of all that's happening and why. Okay. And this is another paradox. Life is not about learning why about everything. Why do we do this? Why do we suffer? You know, why we're lonely, why we're depressed, why we're not good health. That's what we're all, well, people say, if I just knew why. If I just knew why my son died or my little girl was killed, or whatever. If I just knew why. That's another illusion. You're not ever going to know why. There is mystery in the very element, the very depth of our being. We are mystery. And if anybody ever comes to you and says, well, I've got your number, what's your response?
What is it?
No, you don't. What is it?
I'm going to play it on the megabucks, right? Basically, we want to just look at them and say, well, you think you do. Even with spouses living together 50, 60 years, no one wants to have the other one say, I know you completely. Why? Because you don't know yourself completely. Right? And it's okay. One of the things I learned in studying and teaching the mystics is that understanding is highly overrated in the spiritual life.
No.
Okay? Highly overrated. All right? I know the Jesuits would not like that because they focus a lot on education, right? But let me just give you some of the teachings of Rohr as we go here. The three elements of formation. I thought I turned that off. I didn't. Ever have that happen to you? Phones go off in a... This is from... Uh-oh. Call you back.
Later.
I've had that go off and you're celebrating Mass at Marywood, you know, and I thought I switched it the right way. Hello, Joachim.
This is Con.
So anyway, I'm turning this off. Power off. I did a program here not long ago on the cell phone addiction. Okay. They have their place, but they can be slave masters too. You know that? The media. I'm listening to this wonderful book I'd like to recommend to you by Dr. Sherry Turkle, and it's called Reclaiming Conversation. And she also wrote another book before that called Alone Together. And it's all about what media does to your relationships and your peace and your life and your family and your friends. And she's this expert. She probably knows more about this subject than anyone I've ever heard of. Sherry Turkle. And wow, it's just for business purposes, religious purposes, it's very enlightening. Okay, so as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted. Okay, there's formation, which has a lot to do with the formation of your mind and your will, your whole process of growing up in elementary grades and all that formation. We need it all. That's basic formation. Mm-hmm. The basics, okay? Reading, writing, arithmetic, right? And then there is information, which is going deeper into the why. Why is this happening? You know, what's going on? What's happening in the global warming? Whatever it is, it's all information. Some people are information addicts. You know, they just watch the news constantly. They watch the weather constantly. They have to be on top of everything, right? Okay. That's where you want to go? Go for it. But that's not me. Okay. And the other one is transformation. This is my favorite area to talk about. Trans means going beyond. Trans-America, trans-world, across, and it means across. It really means going beyond formation, beyond information. It goes into the mystery of who we are. Oh, they just left a message. Isn't that nice? Okay. So, does anybody have any questions about that? This is fundamental. Does it make sense? What is it? How does that resonate with you? That's my favorite question. Resonate. Resound within you. Because what resonates within me may not resonate within you.
Formation is our Catholic education. Is that what you say?
Well,
Yeah.
there's a lot of kinds of formation. Formation in the Marines. I mean, you know. Yes, Amy.
It strikes me that all of those are active in our life all the time,
Yeah.
but with different intensities. For formation, perhaps earlier in our life, information earlier. So now I'm in the stage of transformation, even though I'm still in spiritual formation. I'm still in information, I'm still learning. So the focus changes through the life stages.
So often what we like to do is learn something and then exclude what we learned before. All right? We're beyond that, so, you know. Rohr teaches this great principle of include and transcend. There's another. Transcend. Okay. Once again, the trend, going beyond. You include what you've learned before. You know, don't have to throw it out. Include it, but transcend it to greater truth. You go beyond it. All of religion is talking about beyond, more. Okay? The word religion comes from the Latin re and lego, legare in Latin, and all those years of Latin we got to use it. Okay, back means re means back, repeat, refer, whatever back. Lego means to put together. Okay, so religion, re lego, religare, means to put it all together. Like Rohr's book, Everything Belongs. You know, and he got a lot of flack from that. How can you dare say everything belongs? What about the Nazis, concentration camps? What about this and cancer and all that? Well, somehow in our spiritual life we can include and transcend. You know, we don't have to judge it and exclude it. That's what we do when we judge. We exclude. We build a wall, right? I had a wedding on Saturday. And one of the members of the wedding party was not Catholic, and it came time for communion, and he had his hand out there like, and I was told before, well, if they're not Catholic, they can't go to communion, you know. I was so torn. I wanted to give that host to him, and I held back, but I didn't like it. I really think that Jesus would want all of us to be
Yes.
welcome in the banquet, you know.
Yes, I agree.
And I'm hoping we get beyond this particular phase in our faith that says, okay, you are worthy and you're not. You know, that's, to me, not the message of Jesus, okay? I'm reminded of the time when I was celebrating Mass in Lake Odessa, and this little 4-year-old boy came up in the line, you know. And everybody else was coming up with their hands, you know, for communion. And he stood there and he looked up to me. And he shouted for the whole church to hear, I am so hungry. Oh my God, I about flipped out, you know. Oh, I wanted to give him the whole sumarium. So it's the beyond. It's going beyond appearances, you know, and that's what we do with any kind of relationship. We go beyond appearances to the person themselves, the person who is the reflection, the image of God. So, it's like beyond. Okay, what's the other story about the person that said, well, you know, I'm getting so old that I go into a room and I said, you know, what did I come here for? You know?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that one?
All the time.
And what's the just trying to think of, oh no, it's the person that said, I'm always thinking of the hereafter. Oh really? Why? Every time I come in the room I say, what am I hereafter? So that's another way of the beyond, okay? All right. So, I think that as we get older, we're more able to put it all together because we've had experiences of great pain and being able to go beyond it. And just to see that silver lining in a sense, that's everything does belong. It's not easy, it's painful, but what's behind the pain? And I think if we don't look at that as people who are getting older, we have missed this boat. What is the meaning of pain? What can we tell our youth today about our experiences of life? How we have been through this and we've been through that and we've suffered here and we've triumphed here and what can we say to those kids who are looking for meaning to their lives? What from your own experiences can you share them? Okay. So I'd just like to see if we could break up into little small groups now and try to respond to that question. When someone younger than you asks you, and maybe they're depressed, maybe they're confused, whatever it is, and they're wondering from your experience of years, okay, some of us many years, what have we learned so that we can pass on? Roy says one of the greatest things that anyone can do is to pass on to those who are younger than you what you have experienced in life. Because otherwise, what can you give? You can't take anything with you, What can you pass on to another generation that you have experienced and learned and what you have included and transcended? Okay? So let's just break up small groups and tables and break up in small groups back in the back and just kind of respond to that question, all right?
First thing that came to my mind
Don't everybody speak at once. I was gonna say, I used to do that at work all the time, I don't know if they would
They would never ask.
And if they did ask, at work, yeah, but now.
Experience of life.
A wise person said to me, Mom, I learn best from my mistakes, let me make them. And so I stepped back and I let her do that.
Children come to you with questions about their own experience.
Sometimes we talk too much.
Is there a saying that says, don't worry about what you say to somebody, or exhibit too much. Be worry about what you are doing that they see. It's something like that, but for me, the past year and a half, I've had some experiences, and sharing the truth, you do see feelings that people I find for me more and more what works the best in modeling and oh, they are. Words can just go right out of their head. What you are doing is how you are doing it. I think it's important and special if you can have that in your life.
They watch how you treat other people.
Oh, yes, yes. Yep. They're now in writer's training. So it's really interesting how they have matured with behind the wheels and the things they say.
You'll understand
And they started as the messenger writer, as I would know, and had fun. I enjoyed doing it. I would ask them if they had turned and I was driving, would they please edit me and tell me what they saw and what I did? Did I go in the correct lane? Did I turn on my turn signals? Because I need to know and need to be updated. It's been lots of fun.
That's a good way to do it, yeah.
Yeah, but
I like that.
I'm learning both ways. It's been cool.
Yeah, bless you.
I find my
Because you don't want to shut
grandkids
down.
like to hear
I cannot talk to
stories. We
Did they want to go back to
did
lecture? So I don't I hope I don't.
that wasn't necessarily the smartest, and that we got
Everybody likes everybody else's foibles or whatever.
right,
All that kind of
right.
stuff.
And it's like, really? Yeah.
Things came out okay.
Yeah, exactly. Or it didn't. We moved on, you know.
Exactly. Yes.
I'm showing my age. What was the question?
Well, I think that's what I should or what have I learned that, what have I learned that and then what she's saying is really living it and not just words.
Yeah.
There was just something with like, you're saying something and if necessary, use words. It's about teaching God will.
Yeah.
Of course it can, but the last one is, and
Yeah.
if necessary.
To use words, because St. Francis.
Yes, I think it
Yeah.
is.
If somebody says that now,
In fact, I find if, you know, something that you told your children and they're kind of backwards from it for whatever reason, you do something and then they reminds you, but I mean, almost like they expect you to do everything right, they don't hold themselves to it. You know, you try to push the lines and they don't like it. Or, you know, we grow and we change and we make mistakes and it's like, yeah, I probably wasn't, but I did what I did, knowing what I knew at the time. Would I do it differently now? Yes.
I don't know how my daughter got to be very wise. She's the one who told me, I learned best from my mistakes.
She got that.
And I don't know what I was saying to her one time. I went through a 12-step program and I wrote a letter of apology to her and she said to me, she said, you did the best with what you knew.
And then you and you forget things sometimes.
You know, and you're just like, wow. You think you did so horrible. And she said, you did what you could with what you knew. And how did I, raise someone so smart, Wow, yeah, exactly. So even though when we think we do bad, we do good.
I was waiting for my one teenager when I was in Barnes and Noble, so I was browsing as well, and saw beside standing up a new book of Obama, and some of the quotes that have been in his speeches. So I just was flipping through with beautiful pictures and quotes, and one was, don't worry about if you fail, learn from it. And I just thought that was really cool. That's powerful.
my grandson is 2 today.
So, I mean, we already know this, what you guys talk about. Yeah. So.
Come to mind.
What would there be that we learn to be yourself that we pass on? it's just, you know, we must.
But, and do it, not just say it.
I know
right?
one thing, now my youngest granddaughter, she's always coming to me asking me to tell her stories about her dad. She says, tell me stories about my dad, tell me stories about my dad, what did my dad do, what is, you know, she's always wanting to hear stories about her dad.
Tell her some fun ones, tell her some naughty ones. I
Yeah.
love that.
I can never think of any, but every now and then I'll, you know.
Here's a sense of humor. That's right.
Now, Pat is good at talking with either of her mother or my father were Catholic, but at the end of her life, she brought both of them. That's not a Shariko said. You get a lot of freaking fire miles for that.
Before they consolidated.
Yeah.
It was more non-judgmental.
We came in July and they had a thing called soul collage. Oh my goodness, called soul collage. Like art. And this woman, it was very touching. Both Linda and I left like, oh my goodness. And there was like 4 or 5, not, you know, not enough words. Obviously people couldn't understand. We didn't either. We didn't know what it was. But it was about transformation, about representing art. Put collage together and
Yes. Choices, and I said, well, that should not be held against you.
When I first responded to Father Lally's question, I came up with, okay, this is what I pass on, and then I realized there's another dimension to us being in a different generation than when we were sitting at the feet of our elders, and that is, was there anyone a girl did it even want? Does that make sense?
From the posterity. Oh, but
My daughter's wife, she started doing booklets that she sends us like at her birthday or
for someone, wise man.
so when she got
Just check it, see how the conversation.
So we can have feelings, right?
You going to give the talk on not judging if she think you might do that? Good, yeah, because they
It's like there isn't an opportunity to do this. It is. Yeah. And not that I may have a need to share, and they have a need to share too, right?
When I was young, I was kind of free. You know, it's kind of like, out of the room. And, but I find my nieces and nephews, my sister's millennial.
I think one of them did 1 year
Conversations about everything. Although I'm now like dating them and giving them life, but I mean,
I don't know what you're talking about.
I look back, my grandparents came from Eastern Europe, both sides. I wish I would have asked them the question, what was it like? Leave my own parents, what like them to keep fresh. Everybody just asked.
They wouldn't talk. And so now I do.
Take another minute to wrap it up, please.
I said,
I'm with you, I wish I could have.
once a month.
Each generation.
And any other things?
And it's like, I told my husband that, it's like his father was very, very close. His parents were very.
Hence the last one.
Huh? Yeah, seriously. And I tell him with my daughter-in-law, I said, look at what her mother is like. Her mother is very, very unmotherly, my daughter. And so what she does as being a mother is leaps and bounds from what her mother does. And so every generation is a little bit more, a little bit more. You can't expect, you know, Mother of the Year, someone who had a mother who wasn't a mother, you know. And so if you had these closed Europeans that were very cold and, you know, you can't expect that if you grow a little bit more. So your grandparents, what they were like, not open, you know, you couldn't expect, you would have asked them and they wouldn't talk.
And another thing, their English was not good. I mean, they
Exactly. We had the same thing. In fact, my cousin and I.
Get back together. I
And
think
she
we
said,
could go.
we were talking about how our
Keep these
mothers treated us.
conversations
She
going
said,
to the
I think
second
that
coming.
was
I
not
think.
that they treated their daughters
have
terribly, so they
people
made them
who
tough.
like to share, and
Yeah,
that's
right.
wonderful. It's just that time is always a dimension, right? You notice that? As we grow older, that time gets more precious.
So quick.
So, I've heard some wonderful the themes that you've been discussing. One of the ones I kept hearing at different tables was that of modeling.
Yeah.
Okay, how we model growing older to the young.
Yes.
They're watching us. We're a living icon, you know, of someone who is getting older, and the youth who treasure so much their youth look at us and say, wow, I wonder if I'll be like them, okay? And that may be something that we would hope for them to say, or we may, in honesty, say, well, I hope you get beyond that. You know? Let me just deal with some of the book from The Gift of Years is the name of the book by Joan Chittister, okay? I gave a class on this book with Sister Sue Tracy to the sisters at Marywood, which was about 3 or 4 years ago. And we divided the themes up to different ones. So I have about 8 themes here that you can see. Transformation and freedom and so forth. Let me just put out a few highlights, okay? Transformation. The truth is that older people tend to come in 2 flavors. The sour ones and the serene ones. All right? The sour ones are angry at the world for dismissing them from the rank and file of those who run it and control it and own it and are not old in it. They demand that the rest of the world seek them out, pity them, take their orders, stay captive to their scowls. Does that sound familiar? Anybody know anybody like that? They're not fun to be around, let me tell you, all right? They're miserable for themselves and make everyone else around them miserable. And that's what can happen if we don't know how to elder others and how we grow into elderhood ourselves. I just came from a conference in Albuquerque with Richard Rohr and his followers in October, and it was called mentoring the old, mentoring the young, okay? And it was 500 men from all over the world, and it was about a way of mentoring those who are younger than us. It was very, very good, very good. So, all right. The serene ones live with soft smiles on their aging faces, a welcome sign to the world of what it means to grow old gracefully, to have the grace of old age. What a grace, what a grace. They require us to go on growing more and more into ourselves as we age. The disease that Meridel de Sour, who lived to be 96, wrote, I am luminous with age. Luminous. Not painted, not masked, luminous. They are the women and men who see with wider eyes, hear with tuned ears, speak with a more knowing tongue. They are people with soul.
Cool.
Okay? It's a choice.
Yes.
Know? And I think this is what so many of us fall into as we get older, is we kind of feel like, well, our choices have been there, and we've been there and done that. There's not much left. The only choice we have is to live until we die, huh? Ever like to be around people like that? You know? No, but they exist, let me tell you. We all know them. And I hope that when we do know them, something in ourselves says, I choose not to grow old that way. All right? There's an important part of the aging process that lies in simply getting accustomed to being older. You ever notice that maybe you can't move around like you used to? One of the things, sometimes it dawns on me, hey, what happened to this young Joachim? Where'd he go? He used to get out of the car and in the car just real quick. It's not the same. I think I just got at least another car, and I got one that was a little higher up. It is not easy, you know? And the older you get, the more you notice it. And it's how you respond to it. How do you judge it? And the main word in the judgmental arena that we need to be aware of, because we've gotten into habits with it, is where's my nice blue one? Okay. It's the heresy of shouldism. All right? I just coined that word at this great moment. All right? Creativity, that's our model, right? Okay. Should. That is the judgment word par excellence. People say, Joachim, you know what? You need to lose a little weight, you know? You need to exercise more. You need to do this. You should do this. You should do that. You should come over here. I said, excuse me? Don't should on me. I say, well, you got to watch your vowels on that. But they're very similar. Both start with SH, right? Okay. But a should is a moral imperative that has no ownership. A moral imperative, it means you should do this, that's an imperative that has no, and I'm not saying I want you to lose weight, I want you to do this or that. I'm saying you should. I'm not taking ownership at all. You just should do it. Where is that should coming from? Where is it, you know? Will you please step up and establish ownership? Doesn't exist. Eliminate it. Delete it from your computer, your vocabulary, your life. You can live without shoulds. And of course, shoulds has many members of the family. There's ought to and must. What else? Better. You better do this. You better do that.
Got to do this.
Got to. Okay, that's another category. That goes into the area of freedom.
Oh, okay.
The whole idea of I have to, I got to, okay. That's all diminishment of freedom. those are words you need to eliminate completely from your vocabulary. Because, even you say to you, well, I have to go shopping, I have to get up, I have to do this. No, it's all BS. You don't have to do anything but die. Everything else is a choice. We just don't believe that. Well, I have to do it. No, you don't. I have to go to work. No, you don't. You can lose your job. You can not have money. I have to pay taxes. No, there are people in prison that didn't pay taxes. It's true. Please. But I've been teaching this, and by the way, if I would teach you two different people that have had such an influence on my life, it's been Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, who just died a few years ago. We were just a few ages apart. I took a course from him in St. Louis in the early 70s, and I've been teaching it ever since. And it's all about responsible thinking. And the way you think affects the way you live, and the way you act, and the way you speak. Okay, so if you don't have any limits or things on your speech, it will affect your behavior and your way of your attitude and everything. So if you wake up in the morning and go, I have to get up, I have to go to the bathroom, I have to get breakfast, I have to go to work. I used to have people write all the things they had to do from the time they got up in the morning till they went to bed at night. And then they'd be writing away, can I have more paper, And I'd say at the end, well, sorry, there's only one thing you have to do, that's die. What? It's true. Anybody have any other options or any choices, any other plans than dying? Just hold up your hand, I'd like to be with you, we'll write a book together. But we are not aware of our choices. And that is the key word in the spiritual life and in intellectual life and everything is awareness, awakening, enlightenment. There's so many different terms that we use in the religion and spirituality, okay? But it's all waking up to what is real. Rohr says another name for God is reality. Okay? There are spiritual writers now that are saying God is not a noun at all, God is a verb. God is not a being, God is all being. God is love. Huh? And I think if we learn nothing else in life than the fact that when John 4:16 says God is love, he's saying God is love. That's God's nature. He doesn't say God does love when he doesn't have a bad hair day, God is love. That's God's nature, which means God cannot not love us because God cannot go against God's own nature. Even God can't do that. So all of you who are afraid of judgment and afraid of God, I'm so sorry. I wish I could convince you that God is not judging you. God is only loving you every heartbeat, every breath of your life. And you have nothing to fear about dying. It's all homeward bound. Okay? And we live in fear because we're judging God, ourselves, and others. We're separating ourselves. The word sin means separation. That's what it means. If you go through the scriptures and translate the word sin for separation, and you've got the biblical understanding of sin. It's separation. It's judgment. That's what judgment is. Okay? So, I feel like a broken record sometimes. I keep saying the same things over and over because I think that so many of us need to be liberated from these kind of thought patterns. That God is looking at us and judging us and saying, I don't love you if you do that. One of Rohr's famous one-liners is, God does not love you if you change. God loves you so that you can change. See? It's all about love. Not about judgment. Would you like to spend heaven with someone who has just sent someone that you love to burn in hell forever? Would you like that? You think you'd have really good relationship with this person? Do you think? Huh? Who wants to spend heaven with someone like that that's going to punish someone for all eternity? No. Hell, I've taught a whole class on this too. I've got all these classes in the videos on demand on the Catholic Information Center. We need to have theoretically the existence of hell, because that says we have a choice to go to love or not love. Okay, we have that. That's a basic. That's freedom. That is who we are. If love is force, it's not free. It's like a square circle. Okay, so it's a matter of recognizing we have the choice to love or not love. But God is not limited by death. And I'm really convinced that the theory and the teaching of apokatasis, which is the Greek word for the universal freedom you found in Revelations 3, says that all people will eventually be united with God. Okay? This says that God is not stopped, God is not rendered helpless by our death. God will continue to seek after us and woo us. I like the word woo because it's all, that means enticement, that means freedom, that means respect. Woo us until we give in to total unconditional love. We fight it because our egos don't like that. We like to earn things, thank you. There's no such thing as a money doesn't. I mean, we have the same parents. They went to the same family of school. We've been brought up that way. And we think, well, religion is the same thing as life. And no, it's not. The reward punishment game is not good news, okay? The good news is that God loves us unconditionally for no reason whatsoever. Because God doesn't need a reason. God is love. All we do is participate in it. We can't earn it, achieve it, deserve it, merit it. We just receive it and hopefully are grateful for it. My friends, that's the good news. I don't think there's any other. If there is, let me know. No, I don't know. Okay? So, I was getting sidetracked. Okay, Marshall Rosenberg. Okay, and then the other would be Keating and Rohr and all these others in terms of contemplative prayer. All right. I learned centering prayer in 1977 in a Trappist monastery, just a weekend workshop or whatever, when I was in Boston, in Spencer, Massachusetts, St. Joseph's Trappist Abbey. 1977. Changed my life, transformed me. Can't explain it. I've been teaching it and practicing it since 1977. I feel like a philanthropist every time I teach it. I really do. I don't know how people live without, I don't know how anyone lives without deep silent prayer. It's beyond me. If I don't have my 2 sessions of 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the evening of deep silent prayer, I am lost. I don't have any energy. I'll probably go into depression. You know, it's like it's what keeps me going. It's my fuel. I heard someone talking there about giving out of energy. I don't have the energy I used to, right? Well, my sense is that you're like spending a lot of your energy up in fighting yourself. You're fighting yourself because yourself says all these things about, oh, I'm not worthy of this kind of unconditional love. I've done too many things that God could not love me for all I've done. And you're fighting against that, you know, instead of receiving it out of total vulnerability. Just being vulnerable to God's love, that's all. Wow, we have missed the boat. Read Paul's letter to the Ephesians, the Galatians, the Romans. It's about the law versus grace, huh? You can't earn grace. It's grace. The grace means coming from the Latin gratia, which means freely given. You can't earn it. I'm sorry. You can't lose it either unless you choose to stiff-arm God, which you have the right to do. That's called hell. Someone said it's hell all the way to hell and heaven all the way to heaven. It is. I'm convinced. I think if I ever could choose what's on my tombstone, I'd say, you don't gain heaven, you get used to it. I'm convinced of it. I think, through my experience, personally, I can only talk about myself, I experience glimpses of heaven, this unity with God, through this deep form of deep prayer. And that's why we were born, to go home. You know, not to stay here, to go home. You know, remember E.T.? Go home, E.T., go home. That's why we're here. And we fight it. We say, oh, I want to live forever. Well, good luck. You know?
Yeah.
And this is where we go and fight against our illusions. Because we're not immortal. Life is terminal. I hate to tell you that. But it is. Nobody's getting out of this world alive. So it's a matter of facing reality and embracing what is instead of shooting it out of the world, you know. Well, I shouldn't feel this way, you know. I shouldn't have this trouble with my hips and my eyes and my whatever, you know. I shouldn't. And my husband shouldn't either. And my children shouldn't be. Are you wasting your time or what? Get out of there. What is this should business? It means nothing. It's an illusion. What if you said yes to what is? You say yes to what you can change and yes to what you cannot change. Remember that old, you know, thing about the, what's the name of the kind of the serenity prayer? Yeah. It's true. It's wisdom, right? I want to recommend to you. By the way, time. We're going to read about it in the essence of time. But use your time wisely. You know, there's so many wonderful things being written in the spiritual life, and the whole business of growth and holiness. Holiness. That's another, I could get off on that. Holiness is not something you achieve, or anybody achieves. If it were, it would be a holiday for the ego. Oh, well, I'm a little more holy than you are. No. Holiness is the same root as wholeness. It means participating in the wholeness of God, the oneness of God. We're all one. We just don't realize it. We think we're separate. We think other people can be aliens or foreigners or illegals. And so we write them off. They're not one of us. Sorry. Too bad you weren't born in America. Stay home. You know, that's that judgment. That's that excluding. That's that separating. That is the essence of unhappiness. And holiness basically means happiness, but in the sense of not happiness that, oh well, are you happy yet? You know, don't you just love when people ask you that? Are you happy yet? What the hell do you mean? Happy. Happy is such an elusive thing. It just, I'm happy with this meal, and then 3 hours later I'm hungry again, so I'm not happy. So what is this? It's more to do with wholeness and peace, putting it all together. You know, recognizing who we are, who God is, who's our neighbor. It's just waking up to reality and truth, okay? So, a lot of people have these illusions. Oh, all I want to, you were probably told as I was in grade school, oh, there's only one ambition, my little boy, my little girl. Be a saint, right? Be a saint, that's all. That's the most woven. Sorry. I can just see yourself in St. Peter's Square looking up at the banner being pulled down. St. Joachim, all right. That's pure ego. The ego is illusion. In the mystical sense of the word, the ego is when you are convinced that you're separate from God. That's what ego is. Not in the sense of Freud and Jung and all these people talking about super ego, and id. I wrote my thesis 60-something years ago, and got my bachelor's on the relationship between scrupulosity and the psychologies of Jung, Freud, and Adler in regard to the whole business of freedom. Okay, and so ego is not who you think you are. You can go into the whole thing of Thomas Burton of your false self and true self. Wow, great stuff. Who's your true self? That's who you really are. Your false self is who you think you are and who others think you are. And this is what a lot of our youth don't know, understand. They think that they are what other people think they are on Facebook and Twitter and all this kind of other stuff, you know. It has its place, it's okay. But it's not the real thing, you know. A digital relationship is not the same thing as a real relationship, you know. And all your quote-quote friends on Facebook mean nothing unless there is a relationship there. So people, I get these notices, my sister got me on Facebook and I'm trying to get off and I haven't been able to get off yet. I want to friend you. I don't even know you and you want to friend me. Come on, please. We are diminishing the meaning of words and friends and all that. Okay. So that's enough tangent to go off on. Okay. So let me just stop it there and see if there's any questions. Okay. You got a lot of material to read and there's a lot of good stuff there. So this is Stump Father time, all right? Stump Joachim time, all right.
I just wanted to clarify what you said about,
Speak up.
I wanted to clarify what Father said about hell, that God will woo us with unconditional love. So you're not saying there's no hell.
No, I'm saying hell has to be a possibility because it represents our freedom to choose or not choose love.
Okay. But to the end, you're saying God is
I'm
still...
saying that God will not be
He won't give up on us.
God will not give up on us.
Okay.
God will never, ever
Okay,
not woo us into total love. That's my conviction.
okay.
That's what true love does. Doesn't give up on you, right? Someone asked St. Teresa of Avila one time. This, of course, she lived in the time of the Inquisition, when you could stretch you or burn you to death, you know, for the wrong thoughts. And those they asked, Mother Teresa, whatever her name is, Sister Teresa, do you believe in hell? And they were just all ready to grab her and throw her in chains. And she said, yes, I do. But then she turned to some of her sisters quietly and said, but nobody's there.
That's what the Catholic Church has never, I mean, I'm not no theologian, but the Catholic Church has never said that there's that someone is in hell.
No, that's true. And that's what Lord teaches. We've been a lot of people declared in heaven, but no one's ever been declared in hell. Even Martin, even Hitler and Stalin, no one's ever been declared in hell.
I believe Judas is in heaven. But that's just...
I don't think it's a matter of distinguishing, because when we die, there is no such thing as time and no such thing as space.
Right.
We're a spirit. The spirit doesn't go somewhere, so we speak of going to heaven. Excuse me, do you have the directions? I'm lost. Can I put that on my GPS? You know? Go to hell? Well, we know what that means. And there's this whole thing of, okay, well, I'm going to get 10 years out of purgatory by visiting
Yeah.
this church on what?
Yeah.
Excuse me? Well, tell me where that is in Scripture, you know? We have a lot of dirty laundry in our church, and it's coming out, sadly to say, in a lot of different ways. But we have also a lot of truth and a lot of people that have been models for us over the years. So we put it all together. It's not this wonderful, holy Roman Catholic Church. It's the mixed bag like we all are. And God loves mixed bags, okay? Anybody here not a mixed bag? Just, you know, stand up, you know. We're all mixed bags. God just loves us, pure and simple. And we cannot tolerate that. I think one of our jobs as growing elder is to be able to tolerate unconditional love. We just have so much trouble with it. God could not love me. You know, oh yeah, He does. God does. Yeah, believe it. Deal with it. All right? That's basically what it means. Deal with God loving you unconditionally, because it's true. God cannot go against God's nature. And I'm sorry, we as churches have taught conditional love for a long time. And I just hope we get beyond it. Okay? We include and go beyond. All right? Let me just tell you this a story that I told at a wedding just Saturday and before that, about the bride that was all nervous about going down the aisle. She told the priest, "Father, I just don't think I can make it. I'm just so nervous." He said, "Dear, don't worry. I've got the solution for you. 3 words. I will teach them through these words, and I will help you to remember them, okay?" "Oh, thank you, Father." Okay, the first word is aisle. Think of the beautiful aisle, the runner going down to the altar. Think of the aisle, okay? Now, think of the beautiful altar, but the flowers and the candles and the cloths, it's just beautiful. Think of the altar. And then think of the beautiful hymn you're singing. Oh, it's just a gorgeous hymn. Okay? So, there she is. She's walking down the aisle, and people on the sides heard her saying to herself, "Aisle, altar, hymn. Aisle, and he's sitting up there saying, "You just think you will." Oh my gosh, that's one of my favorite stories. And I'm convinced that humor is the shortest distance between two people. You know, I really do. I think it's so important. And as adults and as elders, if we're not people who enjoy good humor and are full of joy, the young ones behind are going to say, "I don't think I want to be like them." And this is why we have the postmodern age. Postmodernism means there are no absolutes. We've got to invent the circle ourselves. We have to do everything on our own. We've got to prove everything on our own. And it's a lost generation. It's so sad. It's just so sad. I mean, it's skeptics and cynics and not a lot of joy in Mudville. All right. So, there's one story. It was this dark and stormy night. Not like a Snoopy thing. Right? It was a dark and stormy night, raining cats and dogs. And this guy was out hitchhiking, trying to catch a ride in the rain. Nothing was going on. He was getting drenched. He was so desperate. All of a sudden, his car kind of rolls up and stops. And he just jumps in. And then it started up again. But all of a sudden, he looked in the front seat, and there's nobody in the driver's seat. Why, he's kind of getting freaked out. So he's thinking about jumping up into the front seat to take over, and all of a sudden, he saw it through the window, this curve coming up, and this hand mysteriously appearing, just turning the wheel. Just at each time, about 3 or 4 times, a curve and then the turn, all right, this hand, all right. Wow, he cannot take it anymore. So he jumps out of the car while it's still rolling, runs to the nearest restaurant, telling everybody in there what happened. Just explaining this. Wow. About a half hour later, these 2 men come in, drenching wet. They look for a table, and they look over, and one of them says to the other, "Hey, isn't that jerk that jumped in our car while we were pushing it?" I'm not sure what that has to do, but I just wanted to say that. So, we have just a couple of minutes more. Who wants just to make a comment? Maybe say what resonated with you, what you're going to put in your doggy bag to take home to your imaginary dog, or whatever it is, all right? Please. Yes, sir. Chuck.
You know, you mentioned a little while ago about, indulgences and purgatory and stuff. I think that's just an example of our church makes this whole thing way too complicated. I don't think it has to have all that stuff. I see it as simpler than that.
Well, there are those writers that write that it's all a matter of control issues. They just happen to have the keys, okay, to control everything, and that puts us clergy, the middle men, so to speak, and it is men now, it keeps us in a job. We're needed, okay? The more you get into mysticism, this is the conflict between hierarchy and mysticism through the ages of the church. Mystics have this wonderful direct contact with God in the spirit and the soul. Not that religion is not wonderful, not that we need to get together and worship together, and that's all important. But it's not the whole enchilada, all right? So I think a lot of it is control. This is probably being taped, and if I'm not here next week, you'll know why. Amy, yeah.
I noticed in your notes toward the end that it talks about the difference between isolation and solitude.
Right.
Can you speak to us from your experience and thoughts about that?
Okay, well, as I mentioned, I was in a monastery for 4 years before joining that monastery itself in 1958, and 10 years in the monastery itself as a monk. And we had a lot of silence, a lot of solitude. And this is the foundation that you experience. You learn how to live with yourself. If you can't live with yourself, you can't live with anybody, So the people that want all these trips to Hawaii and all that, and they get out there and lying on this beach, and they say, "Oh, this sand is hot," and this person next to me is smoking a cigar, and we're judging. And in other words, no matter where you go, you take yourself with you, and that spoils everything, right? Because you're judging yourself and everyone else. So, anyway. Where was that on this? What was that?
Solitude.
Oh, yeah. That's what happens when you get older. You get sidetracked more. Okay. I love my solitude. I love being alone. That's not to say I don't love being with people, with y'all, as we say down in the South. I was born in Memphis and raised in Arkansas, so I say y'all. I'm trying to teach all those quote Yankees how to say y'all, but it's not working, all right. But anyway, I love solitude, and it is aloneness. It's not loneliness.
Right.
Okay, we need to learn that distinction between loneliness and aloneness. Aloneness is when you come to grips with who you are and how much you're loved and all the meaning of life. It all just needs this silence in order to percolate, in order to come together. And if we fill our lives with noise and constant watching reruns of I Love Lucy or whatever it is, we're missing out on this period of gestation that we need for this total transition into the homeward bound situation. And so you need solitude, you need silence. I don't know how you can grow spiritually in another way. I really don't. And I feel sorry for so many people who've got to have their radio's on and TV's on and
Right.
everything else constantly and iPods and everything and Facebook. You know. I mean, God is waiting patiently to break in, have a divine break-in, and tell you in so many words, I love you unconditionally, deal with it. And God will not break in and say, will you shut up, I want to talk to you. No, God always respects us. But the ambiance for this being convinced of who we are and how we're loved unconditionally is silence and solitude. I don't know of any other way. If I did, I'd be honor bound to tell you. Does that respond to your question there, Amy? Okay.
Father, doesn't Henry Nouwen have a book on them that features silence and solitude and hostility and hospitality?
Yes.
And there's a third-ish topic, I can't remember it.
Yeah.
But
He's Henry Nouwen's a wonderful writer. I met him one time in Boston. And I had read all these books, and they were just wonderful books. And I felt like I knew him. You know, a lot of times you read an author, you feel like you know them. And so I was at a soup kitchen for the Catholic worker. I was living there at the time in Boston. And he came in, and he just addressed as anyone else. And Henry Nouwen, wow. He's here. I went up and gave this big bear hug, you know. And he looked at me like, do I know you? It was amazing. I'll never forget it. But anyway. So, but that's, anyway, yeah, anyone else, yeah. Anyone else that not has asked a question before, made a comment. Let me just ask, what are you taking home with you? What's in your doggy bag? Tell me, please, quick.
to embrace where we are and what we have, which is very rich, and to appreciate that.
Amen. Okay, good. Everybody else, quick. No judgment. No judgment. All right, what else?
That was it. Only thing you have to do is die.
Live with joy.
Live with joy. All right.
Saying yes to what I can't change and what I can change.
Amen. All right. I like these doggy bags. They're good. Yes.
Learn to forgive yourself.
Learn to forgive yourself. Wonderful. Forgiveness. We could go on forever on forgiveness. Let me just share maybe one last heresy with you. If I perhaps needed one more nail in my coffin, right? Hold on to your seat belts, all right? Fasten them. Don't get on it. I don't ever use intentionally the phrase God is merciful. It's against my religion. Now I'm sure you're totally freaked out, all right, before you jump out of the rolling car and go to the restaurant. Reason why it fits in with everything I've said before, and as far as I know, this is something that I've not read anywhere. It's just come to me in deep prayer. The reason is I really believe in the power of words, okay? What does the word mercy mean? What does it preclude? If I say, I have mercy on you, what does that mean?
That we've done something wrong.
We've done something wrong and someone has holding something against us. I need your mercy, okay? That means I've done something wrong and you've got something against me. Am I right or wrong?
That's right. Yeah.
Is that what we understand by mercy, okay? God does not hold anything against us and never has, never now, and never will, because God is love. God doesn't hold grudges. God has a very poor memory, okay? Thank God, you know. So, I think the word mercy is useless because it connotates this sense of, well, God's changing God's mind. God was going to send us you know where, and now, you know, because God is so good, God's, okay, I'm going to have mercy. It doesn't fit in my theology, okay? And I'm probably, as far as I know, I'm the only one that's ever said this. Pope Francis is always talking about mercy, okay? And here we have a sister mercy here. Excuse me, since I don't want to hurt your tradition. But in my sense, and this is not something you have to believe, I'm offering it to you as my own particular conviction. that because God is unconditional love, we don't need the word mercy, we just need love. God is love. End of story. Nothing else needs to be said. And if you say God is merciful, it indicates another thing. Is this totally freaked out? Are you ready to write the Vatican right now? Call them up, call the bishops right upstairs. There you go. Does that freak you out?
No, I've said it before.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
It's encouraging.
Have you ever heard it before?
Yes, from your father.
Pardon?
From your
I
father.
know I've said it before.
You need to write a book.
I know, that's what people keep saying. I know. I should, right?